Cotton Club, Harlem, New York. 2 a.m., March 15th, 1927. Tuesday night. Babe Ruth sits at the bar, drinking whiskey, talking with friends. A normal night, 1920s New York. Prohibition era. No legal alcohol, but secret clubs exist. Cotton Club is one of them, the most famous, the most dangerous, because the Mafia controls it. Dutch Schultz's territory. Schultz is there, corner table, 5 men with him, suits, hats, guns under their jackets. He sees Ruth, recognizes him. Everyone knows Babe Ruth, but Schultz does not look impressed. He stands up, walks toward Ruth's table. 2 men beside him, big men, dangerous men. Schultz stands behind Ruth. Babe Ruth, famous baseball player. Ruth does not turn around, just sips his whiskey. Schultz continues, "This is my club, my territory. You are drinking here, my liquor, breathing my air, and you have not even thanked me." Ruth still does not turn, silent, calm. Schultz moves closer, whispers in Ruth's ear, "Maybe a famous man like you needs protection. New York is a dangerous city. I hear you have a daughter, beautiful girl, 10 years old. You would not want anything to happen to her." That moment, Ruth places his hand on his glass. Slowly, no rush. Then he turns, looks at Schultz. No anger in his eyes, no fear, just silence, dangerous silence. And he says, "If you touch my daughter, I will kill you." 5 words, whispered, not shouting, not threatening, just stating a fact. Schultz steps back, because he sees something in Ruth's eyes, not fear, certainty. This man is not joking. This man keeps his word. Schultz tries to smile. "Hey, I was just joking. Relax." Ruth turns back, finishes his whiskey, says nothing. Schultz returns to his table, whispers something to his men. After that night, nobody ever bothered Babe Ruth or his family again, because the Mafia learned something. Some people cannot be threatened, because they have nothing to lose and everything to protect. To understand this moment, you need to understand 1920s New York. The city is controlled by criminals. Prohibition made alcohol illegal, but people still want to drink. So organized crime provides what the law forbids. Speakeasies, secret clubs, hidden bars, all run by gangsters. Dutch Schultz is one of the most powerful. Controls Harlem, controls the Bronx, controls illegal alcohol distribution across New York. He is violent, ruthless, kills anyone who crosses him. The police fear him. Judges are paid off. Politicians work for him. He is untouchable, and he knows it. But Schultz has one weakness. He loves celebrity, loves being seen with famous people, loves the respect that comes from associating with stars. And in 1927, nobody is more famous than Babe Ruth. Ruth is not just a baseball player. He is a cultural icon, the most recognized face in America, bigger than movie stars, bigger than politicians. When Babe Ruth walks into a room, everyone stops, everyone watches, everyone wants to meet him. Schultz wants that too, wants to be photographed with Ruth, wants to tell people Ruth drinks at his club, uses Ruth's name. So when Ruth starts coming to Cotton Club, Schultz sees opportunity. Not just business, status, but there is a problem. Ruth does not acknowledge Schultz, does not pay tribute, does not show respect, just comes, drinks, leaves, treats the club like any other bar. This bothers Schultz, because in his world, respect is everything. Everyone pays tribute, everyone shows deference. But Ruth acts like Schultz does not exist. March 15th, 1927 is not the first time Schultz approaches Ruth. It is the 3rd time. The first time was 2 weeks earlier, February 28th. Ruth was sitting alone, finishing a drink. Schultz walked over, friendly, smiling. "Mr. Ruth, Dutch Schultz. I own this club. It is an honor to have you here." Ruth nodded. "Nice place." "Thank you. Listen, a man of your stature, you should have VIP treatment. Private table, best liquor, my personal protection." Ruth looked at him. "I am fine at the bar." "I insist. No charge. Just, you know, professional courtesy." Ruth understood what he meant. Professional courtesy means obligation, means debt, means owing favors. Ruth finished his drink, stood up. "I pay for what I drink, do not need favors," and walked out. Schultz stood there. His men watched, waiting for orders. Schultz just smiled, but his eyes were cold. The second time was March 7th, 1 week later. Ruth came back to Cotton Club. Schultz was ready, had a bottle of expensive whiskey sent to Ruth's table. Ruth asked who sent it. Bartender said, "Mr. Schultz, compliments of the house." Ruth looked at the bottle, called the bartender back. "Tell Mr. Schultz thank you, but I pay for my own drinks. He can keep this." Returned the bottle, ordered regular whiskey, paid cash. Schultz watched from across the room, his jaw tight, his hands clenched. Nobody refuses Dutch Schultz. Nobody sends back his gifts. This is disrespect, public disrespect, in his own club. His men whispered, "Boss, you want us to teach him a lesson?" Schultz shook his head. "Not yet. He is famous. Touching him brings attention. Police, newspapers. I will talk to him first." So March 15th, third attempt. But this time Schultz is not friendly, not offering gifts. This time he is making the situation clear. Either Ruth shows respect, or there are consequences. When Schultz whispers about Ruth's daughter, he is not making an empty threat. This is how the Mafia operates. They target families, wives, children, because hurting a man directly brings retaliation. But threatening his family? That makes men cooperate, makes them pay, makes them submit. Schultz has used this method dozens of times. Businessmen who refuse protection money suddenly pay when their children are mentioned. Club owners who resist takeover agreements change their minds when wives are followed home. This tactic always works. Always. Because every man has something he values more than pride, his family. Schultz expects Ruth to react the same way, expects fear, expects immediate cooperation. "How much do you want? What do you need? Please do not hurt my daughter." That is what people always say. But Ruth does not say any of that. Instead, Ruth says 5 words that change everything. "If you touch my daughter, I will kill you." Not a threat, not a warning, a promise. Ruth says it quietly, his voice barely above a whisper, but every word is clear, every word is certain. And Schultz, a man who has heard thousands of threats, thousands of promises, thousands of desperate pleas, recognizes something different. Ruth means it, completely. Absolutely, without doubt. Schultz has seen fear many times, knows what it looks like, eyes darting, hands shaking, voice trembling. Ruth shows none of that. Ruth is calm, steady, looking directly at Schultz with eyes that show zero fear, zero hesitation, just cold certainty. And Schultz realizes something in that moment. He realizes that killing Babe Ruth's daughter would not make Ruth cooperate, would not make Ruth pay, would not make Ruth submit. It would make Ruth come after him. Not with lawyers, not with police, not with legal consequences. Ruth would come personally, would find Schultz, would kill him, and Ruth would not care about the consequences, would not care about prison, would not care about his own life, because a man who has lost his daughter has nothing left to lose. Schultz understands this, because he has created men like this before, men who lost everything, Men with nothing left to lose, and those men are the most dangerous, because they cannot be negotiated with, cannot be reasoned with, cannot be scared. They just act, violently, definitively, without hesitation. Schultz has 5 bodyguards, has weapons, has an entire criminal organization. But looking into Ruth's eyes, he knows none of that matters. If something happens to Ruth's daughter, Ruth will find a way. Will wait years if necessary. Will sacrifice everything. And one day, when Schultz least expects it, Ruth will kill him. Not because Ruth is a killer, but because Ruth is a father, and fathers do not negotiate when their children are threatened. Schultz steps back, tries to laugh. "Hey, relax. I was just talking, just making conversation." Ruth does not respond, just turns back to his drink, dismissing Schultz. Showing the threat means nothing. Showing fear does not exist here. Schultz returns to his table. His men look at him, waiting for orders. "Boss, what do you want us to do?" one asks. "Nothing," Schultz says quietly. "We do nothing." "But, boss, he disrespected you. In your own club. Everyone saw." "Everyone saw me walk away alive," Schultz responds. "That is respect enough." His men are confused. This is not how Schultz operates. Schultz always retaliates, always makes examples, always shows strength. But tonight, Schultz shows something else. Wisdom. Because wisdom sometimes means knowing when to walk away, knowing when the cost of victory is too high, knowing when you are facing someone who cannot be broken. Later that night, after Ruth leaves, one of Schultz's men asks him, "Boss, why did you back down? Ruth is just a baseball player. We could have—" Schultz interrupts. "Could have what? Could have hurt his daughter? Then what? Then Ruth becomes a problem. Not a legal problem, not a business problem, a personal problem. He does not care about police, does not care about prison. He just wants revenge. You want a 220-pound athlete hunting you? A man with nothing to lose? A man every cop in New York loves? Every judge loves? Every newspaper loves? You touch Ruth's family, and suddenly we have the entire city coming after us. Not worth it." The man nods, understanding now. "So we just let him disrespect you?" "He did not disrespect me," Schultz says. "He showed me who he is, and I respected that. Some people you do not mess with, not because they are stronger, but because they are willing to lose everything. Those people are dangerous. Leave them alone." If you are seeing a different side of both Babe Ruth and the criminal underworld, make sure to subscribe so you never miss these powerful untold stories. And comment below. Do you think Ruth was right to respond so directly, or should he have handled it differently? Let me know your thoughts. Word spreads quickly through New York's criminal world. Babe Ruth cannot be touched. Not because of his fame, not because of his money, but because of his response. Other gangsters hear the story. Some think Schultz went soft. Some think he made the right call. But everyone agrees on one thing. Ruth is different. Most celebrities, when threatened, hire security, hire lawyers, pay money, disappear. But Ruth? Ruth looked a killer in the eye and promised to become one himself. That earns respect. Even from criminals, especially from criminals, because criminals understand violence, understand commitment, understand what it means to look death in the eye and not blink. Ruth did that, not with bravado, not with theatrics, just with quiet certainty. After that night, Ruth continues going to Cotton Club, continues drinking, continues treating it like any other bar, and nobody bothers him. Schultz's men nod when he enters. Show respect, but keep distance, because the order has been given. Leave Ruth alone. He is off limits, not because he paid, not because he cooperated. but because he showed he would rather die fighting than live cooperating. Years later, in 1935, Dutch Schultz is murdered, shot by rival gangsters, dies slowly, painfully. His last words are rambling, confused, filled with regret and fear. One of the detectives investigating his murder interviews people who knew him, asks about enemies, asks about threats. One of Schultz's former associates mentions the Ruth incident. Dutch always said there were two types of dangerous men: men who want to kill you, and men who are willing to die killing you. The first type you can deal with, negotiate, buy off, scare. The second type, you avoid them, because there is no winning. Dutch said Ruth was the second type, said he saw it in his eyes that night at Cotton Club, said Ruth would have hunted him forever if anything happened to his kid. Dutch was smart enough to walk away. Not everyone is. The detective writes this down, finds it interesting that a gangster would respect a baseball player, and asks, did Ruth ever know how close he came to violence that night? The associate shakes his head. Ruth did not care how close he came. That was the point. He was not avoiding violence. He was accepting it. Schultz threatened his daughter. In Ruth's mind, violence was already inevitable. The only question was whether Schultz would survive it. Schultz realized he would not, so he backed down. So Ruth won without fighting? Ruth won by being willing to fight, by being willing to lose everything, by being willing to die. Once you show someone you will go that far, they do not test you, because testing you means dying. And most people, even criminals, want to live. What makes the Cotton Club moment remarkable is not the threat. Threats happen constantly in 1920s New York. The remarkable part is Ruth's response. Most people, all when threatened, show fear, even if they hide it, even if they act tough. Somewhere, fear shows, in their eyes, in their voice, in their body language. Ruth showed nothing. No fear, no doubt, just absolute certainty. This was not because Ruth was fearless. He had fears. Everyone does. But in that moment, protecting his daughter mattered more than fear, more than safety, more than life itself. And when a person reaches that state, when they value something more than their own survival, they become incredibly dangerous, not because of skill, not because of training, but because they have eliminated the one thing that makes most people hesitate: self-preservation. Schultz recognized this, recognized that Ruth had crossed a line in his own mind, had decided that if his daughter was touched, nothing else mattered, not consequences, not prison, not death, just revenge, and you cannot threaten someone who has already accepted death, cannot intimidate someone who has already decided to sacrifice everything. Schultz was violent, ruthless, killed many people. But he killed for profit, for power, for control. He killed strategically. But Ruth would kill emotionally, would kill personally, would kill without strategy or planning or concern for consequences, would just kill. And Schultz knew that emotional killing is far more dangerous than strategic killing, because strategic killers can be predicted, can be managed, can be avoided. Emotional killers? They are unpredictable, unstoppable, uncontrollable. They just act. The Cotton Club incident reveals something about Babe Ruth that baseball never showed. On the field, Ruth was joyful, playful, laughing, pointing to the outfield, calling his shots, making children smile. He was the Bambino, the lovable giant, the American hero. But off the field, away from cameras, in moments of real threat, Ruth was something else. He was dangerous, not because he wanted to be, but because he would be if necessary. This duality is what made Ruth remarkable. He could be gentle with children, sign autographs for hours, visit sick kids in hospitals, bring joy to thousands. But he could also look a killer in the eye and promise to become one himself, could switch from jovial entertainer to lethal protector instantly, could go from making people laugh to making them fear without hesitation. Most people are one thing, good or bad, soft or hard, peaceful or violent. Ruth was both, completely, authentically. He genuinely loved making people happy, but would genuinely hurt anyone who threatened his family. This made him unpredictable, made him dangerous, because people could not categorize him, could not assume his kindness meant weakness, could not mistake his joy for softness. Dutch Schultz learned this, learned that the man who makes children smile can also make killers step back, learned that gentleness and violence can coexist in the same person, learned that threatening Ruth's daughter was the one thing that would transform the lovable Bambino into something terrifying. March 15th, 1927. Cotton Club, 2 a.m. A gangster whispered a threat, mentioned Ruth's daughter, expected fear, expected cooperation, expected submission. Instead, he got 5 words. "If you touch my daughter, I will kill you." 5 words that contained no anger, no emotion, just certainty, just fact, just promise. And those 5 words did what lawyers could not do, what money could not do, what fame could not do. They created safety, because Schultz walked away, told his men to leave Ruth alone, spread the word through New York's criminal underworld. Ruth is off limits, not because he paid protection money, not because he showed respect, but because he showed he would rather die fighting than live threatened. That night, Ruth finished his drink, paid his tab, walked out of Cotton Club, went home to his daughter, tucked her into bed. She never knew how close danger came, never knew her father had just promised to kill someone, never knew that her safety was guaranteed by 5 quiet words. And Ruth never told her, never mentioned it, just lived his life, played baseball, made people happy, protected his family. Because that is what fathers do. They create safety, they eliminate threats, they do whatever necessary, without hesitation, without regret, without fear. The Cotton Club moment became legendary in criminal circles, but almost nobody else heard about it. No newspapers, no police reports, no public record, just whispered stories among gangsters, stories about the night Babe Ruth scared Dutch Schultz, stories about the baseball player who looked death in the eye and did not blink, stories that reminded criminals that fame does not mean weakness, that gentleness does not mean softness, that the man who brings joy to millions can also bring violence to anyone who threatens what he loves. 50 years later, in 1977, a crime historian interviewing former gangsters about Prohibition era asks about celebrity encounters. One old man, a former member of Schultz's organization, mentions Ruth. "We were told never to approach him, never to speak to him, never to look at him too long. Boss said Ruth was dangerous. We laughed at first. A baseball player? Dangerous?" But the boss was serious, said he saw something in Ruth's eyes, said Ruth would kill without thinking twice if you threatened his family. We believed him, because the boss was not scared of cops, not scared of rival gangs, not scared of death. But he was cautious of Ruth. That told us everything. The historian asks, was the threat real? Would Ruth actually have killed someone? The old man nods. Oh, yeah, absolutely. We all knew it. Ruth was not some tough guy trying to act hard. He was a father who meant what he said. Those are the most dangerous people, because they have already decided, already accepted the cost, already made peace with dying. You cannot fight someone like that. You can only leave them alone. which is what we did. Ruth lived his life, we lived ours, and everyone stayed alive. That is the best outcome anyone could ask for. That is the legacy of Cotton Club, March 15th, 1927. Not violence, but violence prevented. Not death, but death avoided. Not a fight, but a fight that never needed to happen, because one man showed absolute certainty and another man showed wisdom. Ruth showed he would kill if necessary. Schultz showed he would not make it necessary. Both men walked away. Both men survived. Both men respected what had just happened. A threat issued, a promise given, a decision made, no further action needed. Because sometimes the greatest strength is not fighting. It is showing you are completely willing to fight. And sometimes the greatest wisdom is not winning. It is knowing when the cost of winning is too high. Dutch Schultz learned that night, learned that some people cannot be threatened, cannot be broken, cannot be controlled, because they value something more than their own lives. And when you threaten what they value, you do not create fear. You create inevitability. Schultz chose not to test that inevitability, chose to walk away, chose to let Ruth drink his whiskey in peace. And because of that choice, both men lived. Ruth continued being the Bambino, making children smile, hitting home runs, creating joy. But deep inside, he remained something else, something darker, something protective, something that would emerge only when threatened, something that whispered 5 quiet words and meant every one of them. If you touch my daughter, I will kill you. Words that saved a life by promising to take one. Words that created peace through the promise of violence. Words that showed the world Babe Ruth was more than a baseball player. He was a father. And fathers do not negotiate.